or this afternoon even. My day's been thrown today. I've had my daughter's nativity play this morning, so I was just relieved to have been able to go, which was nice. So yes, that was fun.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get going. We've still got a few people joining us, but we'll let them join as we go. We've just got a brief introduction video, and then we're going to get into the session today. Okay, here we go. Welcome everybody to our webinar. It's fantastic to have so many fabulous faces. We're working with hundreds of trainers and consultants and tutors across the world, and some large clients to help digitise their learning and development strategies.
With interaction, use lots of options.
In the online space, engagement is key.
To be able to bring digital tools into the face-to-face space.
I feel like it's really setting my business up.
And it gave us not only the confidence, but also the skills.
Okay, so welcome to How to Stop Your Training Being Cancelled. My name is Erica Farmer, co-founder and business director of Quantum Rise Talent Group. I've got 20 years corporate experience in the learning and development sector, particularly the corporate and apprenticeship space. I've held roles, head of leadership. I've worked with organisations like British Gas, Specsavers, LV, working with the NHS currently, lots of clients. We work with the likes of Fujitsu, we're working with Bostik, McDonald's and Costa Coffee, very much in the kind of either the apprenticeship space or the digital learning space. And we're here today to kind of share some tips and tricks with you around some of the challenges that the industry is facing right now, particularly around some of the announcements, classic timing around what came out from the government last night, and the types of conversations we can have with our stakeholders or our clients who might knee-jerk and kind of go to the space of things needing to be cancelled. What are the other options that we've got available to keep our apprentices on programme, keep our learners in learning, and how we can maximise the digital space to be able to do that. I'm going to hand you over to Hayley, my business partner, who's also going to do an introduction as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Erica. So yes, as you can see, my name's Hayley Bird. I'm delivery director for Quantum Rise Talent Group and co-founder. So Erica and I really set up this business to be able to show people the art of the possible and what we can do in the digital space. And I've got such a passion for it, having come from years of face-to-face training and quickly converted about five or 6 years ago now into pure virtual facilitation. So there's a real opportunity here to provide a great amount of accessibility and engagement, and that's kind of where we're coming from, where my passion comes from to bring to you today. So most of my experience sits in that conversion really of face-to-face materials, face-to-face programs, content strategies into virtual strategies for organizations where the learners are at the heart of everything that we're doing. So my roles have been in skills, learning development, careers, teaching, and digital learning over the last 15 years or so. So that's where I've come from. So we're going to share with you a very brief agenda shortly. But before we do, it's really useful for us to understand what you actually want to get out of this session. So you've booked on, you're here, you're investing an hour of your very precious time to be with us today. So let us know in the chat box what you'd like to get out of the day today. What would you like to get out of the next hour? What would be useful for you? Because Erica and I can be really flexible. We use the content to spark discussion, to cover certain topics and share with you our experience, but it's really important to us as well that we're meeting your expectations. So open up the chat box. It's in the black toolbar at the bottom of your screen. Click on that one, say hello in there by all means to get the chat going. But let us know what you want to take away from today, and we'll wait to see some of those responses coming in there.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Hayley. Yes, and do say hello to us as well, and let us know where you're from, and any other particular challenges that you're facing currently at the moment. It's a shared space and it's a safe space. We are recording, so you can go back and watch it if you want to as well. But yeah, let us know, what else do you want to get? What do you want to get out of the session today?
Brilliant, Nicole. Hot topics, what's going on currently, and it's ever evolving, isn't it? It's changing. So sometimes what's going on currently is being okay with that, and preparing for that change and what's coming in the future. I love that. Brilliant stuff. Keeping virtual content interactive. Yes, you will get that here. I hope that that's kind of where our passion really lies, is keeping it interesting, interactive, where people are going to want to learn. Brilliant stuff. And Steve, there, what we've spoken about really, so that ability to be able to convert face-to-face into remote delivery, what we're all great at. You guys will be experts in your fields, and this is absolutely about being able to take that and do what you do best, but do it in the online space. Anthony, hints, tips, great practice ideas, absolutely. And challenge with the business with ongoing lack of uptake and L&D interventions. John, thank you for your comment and your honesty in that as well, because it's definitely something that we're seeing, is that challenge around buy-in. We want to get people to buy into this approach and to want to learn and to self-direct their learning. I think that's absolutely key as well. So we'll be covering off all of this in the session today, and hopefully provide you with a bit of inspiration as well around how to take this forward after the webinar, after the session this afternoon. Brilliant stuff. So the things that we're going to be covering today and looking at, we're together for an hour or up to an hour. We're going to be thinking about not just that conversion and that kind of frontline design and delivery, but we're going to be thinking about actually, how do I talk confidently with stakeholders about sticking to these training plans, and that there is another way, and there's a way that we can diversify what we're doing, change what we're doing to adapt to the world that we're in. And that communication, that influence is really key, I think, for a lot of us in being able to take this forward. We're going to be thinking about demonstrating really great online delivery. People need to see it, they need to feel it, and that's something Erica and I have really learned over the last couple of years, is people need to feel that it can be different, and that you can move face to face into an online approach, and it can feel good, and it can be fun and innovative and learner centric. We're going to think about some sort of basic tips and tricks really, and quite quick wins around converting some of your in-person training to virtual, and there's some really key things we can put in place. It isn't the same, we know that, but what's the key ingredients that make it different and make it effective? And we're going to give you some really practical tips to take away today, which we know everybody loves. So before we get started then, I want us to just think about where we are, maybe where we've been in the last couple of years. And I want you to think about the impact to you of cancelling training. So what is the impact here if we start reacting to announcements, changing the way that we're working, prioritizing different things, and that starts to impact on us and starts to cause us to start cancelling our training. So we're going to get a poll everywhere going for this. So this will create a word cloud on the screen, live on the screen for you today. Now, to access that, you can either put the polev.com/quantumrise759 into your web browser. You can also put that into your web browser on your phone, whether it's Safari, Google Chrome, whatever you use. Make sure you put the whole address in. Sometimes we click go before we've typed it all in, and then it will just take you to the Poll Everywhere website. So type the whole thing in. And then what you'll be asked to do is just use one word to describe this impact. So it's a word cloud, which means if we put 2 or 3 words in, they'll separate over the screen. So try and really condense this to just one word. What is the impact of cancelling training? So we'll wait for a few of those to start coming up, and you'll see them coming up live on the screen once you put them into your web browser. And let's just get a feel for actually bringing this to life, because there is an impact of cancelling training, and we're going to start bringing to life what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might be impact to you, impact to your learners, impact to your business, impact to your stakeholders, impact to your customers potentially. What is that specific impact? And get as granular as you can on this as well, because I think everybody on this call, how many have we got? Kind of 13 people on the call so far. Everyone's going to have a slightly different view on this, but we all understand we're all in that kind of clan of wanting to deliver the best experience for our learners and our business and our employers and our clients. And sometimes it's an educational piece, sometimes it's a stubborn piece, sometimes it's a just kind of really believing in what you do and why you do it. We're going to explore a bit more of that a bit later as well.
Definitely. And if you can see something on the screen that's starting to come up now that Erica's sharing that you agree with and you want to reinforce, do type it in as an additional option. It just makes the word bigger, and it gives a real impact to what we're seeing here. So even in this small group, we're seeing reputation and financial coming through quite strongly. And that's where a number of people would have put that word in. So you can start to see the things that are being really, really reinforced there as well, which I think sends an interesting message for us. So give another few seconds just to get any more on there. Any others that you can think of, any that you want to support and reinforce that you can already see. And we're going to start to consolidate some of that really shortly as well. But absolutely, that financial, that efficiency, the reputation, these are coming through big. These are big challenges. And clearly, when you're putting that in there, you're not on your own with that as well, and those challenges. And progression, of course, the people, what's going on with these people? Not just progression in their existing roles, but what are we doing to prepare them for their roles in the future? Because obviously they're going to be looking and feeling very different. I can't remember what the percentage is now, Erica, but it's high 60s, isn't it?
65, yeah.
65% of jobs that are going to exist in the future don't exist now. So our children, our young people in schools, the job that they're likely to end up doing when they finish school won't be a job that even exists at the moment. So that highlights a huge need to focus on skills for the future. Disengagement, yes, we've talked about that a little bit as well. Capability.
If you're not able to pop a word into poll everywhere for whatever reason, feel free to stick it in the chat as well. We've also got kind of multi ways that you can engage and give us your thoughts. The most important thing is that you feel like you can contribute, you can interact, you can engage. We love a bit of poll everywhere. There's a free version of this, by the way. If you're not using these kind of polling tools in your online delivery, we definitely recommend there's quizzes and knowledge assessments and all sorts of things that you can do with these kind of sites. They're fantastic. But yeah, if there's if you can't get in for whatever reason, or you don't have your phone to hand, stick it in the chat for us.
Brilliant. Thanks, Erica. So some really good things there. You can also screenshot that if you want to, either control print screen, paste it in somewhere else, or if you want to, you can access the annotation toolbar in Zoom, which is just at the top of the screen where it says view options next to the green bar that says you're viewing Erica's screen. Click on annotate, and up there you've also got the option to click save, and you can save the screenshot. So if you want to keep hold of anything today, capture any slides that we're going through, you can do that as well and screenshot those throughout the session. Loads coming in there now. Awesome.
Brilliant, isn't it? So that's going to keep going. That's going to keep being live in the background. And when we send out the link to the recording, we'll send that out as well, so you can see how big it's got and the interaction that you guys have had in that exercise. So thank you so much for that. Let's go back to our slides as a bit of a debrief, so we can understand what else we're thinking about for this as well.
Brilliant. So you've come up with even more than what we've touched on at all, but these are some of the key things that we're hearing from organisations. So we've kind of pulled this together from the main top themes that we're hearing. Disruption of plans, of course, that's huge. It's throwing people off left, right and centre. We're already reacting to enough changes in the workplace without having to add training and face-to-face events on top of that. So disruption to plans is huge. Income as well, financial came up a lot in that word cloud. So income and finances are absolutely being affected as well. Engagement, we've talked about that. People are just not buying into it. They're on Zoom all the time, Teams all the time. How can we get the love for learning back and get their engagement back into place? Productivity, skill loss, lack of skill development for the future as well. So these are some of the ones that we've just summarized and pulled together for you today, which just builds on what you've already said in the word cloud. So what is your response strategy? So let us know in the chat. Write it down on a piece of paper if you'd rather reflect on this yourselves, whichever way you'd prefer to do it. But what are you doing at the moment? What is your go-to strategy? So when this is happening and we're getting another announcement saying work from home again from Monday, what is your immediate response to that? How are you responding at the moment to the changes, the challenges that we're facing in the workplace? Let me know in the chat if you're happy to share. Write it down on a piece of paper if you'd rather not, but just reflect on that a minute, because as we go forward into this session, we'll be building on that a little bit more and thinking about that strategy.
If you're in the funded learning space, if you've got, licenses to trade through Ofsted and the ESFA and people like that, this stuff's really important. This is the kind of stuff that you'll be communicating to your learners or your employers, or, when you do get a monitoring visit or a full visit as well, this is the kind of stuff that, Ofsted and the ESFA are also looking at. So this could be looked at in lots of different ways. This could be an internal response. This could be an external response. What the kind of things that you would say and do? What's your left turn? What's your agile thinking? What's the way of dealing with uncertainty when these things happen? Or do you not have one? Lots of organizations are kind of say, oh gosh, actually, we thought we'd ping back to face-to-face and everything was okay and we weren't going to be in this space again. So yeah, just give us your thoughts in the chat. Okay, yeah. Steve says increasing frequency of one-to-one interventions. Yeah, so as long as making sure everybody's got the type of support that they need when they need it, I think that's really, really important for sure. Absolutely. Cheryl says adhering to the government guidance, but have a contingency plan. Yes, gosh, if we've learned one thing over the last year and a half, right, is contingency. Working in that kind of VUCA environment, variable, uncertain, changeable, ambiguous. I saw a post on Facebook after the announcements, the Plan B announcements last night, and someone said, when are we ever going to get back to certainty? And I read it and I reflected and I said, are we ever going to get back to certainty? I think we now live in uncertainty. That's certain that we're going to be uncertain, right? So,
and did we ever have any certainty?
Did we ever have
certainty?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, Anthony says review plans, identify what can be delivered remotely, ensure plans are in place to deliver learners that have access. That's a big thing, accessibility. Might require shorter, more frequent sessions. Anthony, you're speaking our language, amen. Sharing content, exactly. And this isn't about, oh God, let's just get everybody in front of e-learning, or let's get everybody in front of Zoom, or let's just record loads of content. This is around an overall strategy, a learning delivery strategy. And part of that might be your interactive online space. Part of that might be more of a blended approach, a self-serve approach. Some of that potentially might still be in person. It's all dependent and applicable to what you're doing. But you know what? You're the expert, and I think we forget that sometimes. Having worked in corporate learning and development for 20 years, I've never known another function get the flack that the L&D or learning providers get when things get hard. And this can be how do you monitor your value evaluations, and what's your budgets looking like, or your return on investment, and this kind of stuff. But you don't often see those kind of challenges around things like marketing teams or operational teams or sales teams or whatever it might be. I think as L&D, we kind of have, probably amongst everybody, have to prove ourselves more than any. That's how it feels. I don't know if you agree or not. Let me know in the chat. I might be just on my soapbox, but let me know your thoughts on that. But don't be afraid to tell your clients or your stakeholders what's going on. Don't be afraid to share some of the good practice that you're already doing in advance of things changing. Don't be afraid to challenge stakeholders or clients based on their own preference. So who here, let me know in the chat, who here knows somebody they work with, either a client, a stakeholder, a colleague, who is dead set that everything needs to go back to in person. They can't quite tell you why, but who here knows somebody who's got that mindset? It might be because that's the way we've always done it. That's the way we're more comfortable. That's our preference. But actually, if we're going to pull everything every time we get an announcement from the government, that we've put all of that time and effort into planning, that's just an absolute waste of time and space for everybody. So what do you need to do to reassure your stakeholders or clients about? Stick your thoughts in the chat for us. Thinking about the clients or the stakeholders, what kind of things do you need to reassure them about? So it might be your biggest client, it might be your biggest internal stakeholder, it might be your boss, it might be a director in your organization. What do you think you need to reassure them with when it comes to training, design, delivery, learning delivery, apprenticeship progression, whatever it might be, skills, for example, teaching? What are they looking for from you as a training supplier or a training department? bit of a question to stretch the old grey matter there. Give us your thoughts in the chat. Compliance, Steve, absolutely, definitely number one, compliance. They're looking to make sure the workforce is compliant in whatever way that might be. What else are they looking for? We're fortunate to have leaders who embrace the potential of blended. However, some employers and learners demand face-to-face as a preference. Isn't that interesting? So it's coming from the learner. We reassure them the quality will not reduce if delivered remotely, 100%. John says the value add, how does this contribute to business strategy and goals? Yeah, so would you walk into a colleague's department, which is completely different function from HR or learning development, and say, this is how you need to be doing your job right now, right? Marketing, you need to be using Adobe Suite, and you need to be using that color of red, and you need to be, they would tell you to go so quickly, but for some reason, stakeholders and employers and clients think that they can do that to L&D, and we're not always sure why that is. Sometimes that's a historical relationship. Sometimes that's just an assumption. Everybody thinks they're a trainer. Everybody thinks they're good at L&D. ROI, Cheryl says, absolutely. We're looking for what the impact to the business would be. So I came up with consistency. You know, if it's consistency of what you need the workforce to do. If you're training a call center, for example, they need to be able to speak to customers in a certain way. Impact, there's a reason why that client, that employer, or that stakeholder has come to you. They're looking for a certain impact. I need my leaders to be able to have difficult conversations because of productivity, etc. Or I need my engineers to be able to fix so many boilers within a certain period. And the output of that, what does that mean to the business? But the opportunity that we've got here is huge, and we've got the opportunity to link digitalization and digital transformation and really align and drive business success and strategy and future proofing through being able to be really comfortable with digital learning. So we're not in that kind of battling of whether training is going to go ahead or not. We've had conversations up front. We've been confident in what we're saying. We're also able to demonstrate that we can drive that digitalization and digital transformation. And this is what I mean by that. Digitization is moving from analog to systems to digital. So it might be that you've had, you know, everything paper-based for a period of time, or you might have people doing things in workbooks or writing notes on paper. Actually, what systems can we use that digitizes that? And we can play with that in the L&D and the apprenticeship space till the cows come home. Digital transformation, however, is starting from a place of digital, and whether that's a hybrid offering, a digital offering. So how are we gonna, you know, Monday people are starting to work from home again. How are we going to make sure people are engaged? How are we going to make sure our line managers are comfortable in doing one-to-ones, in having meetings, in running sub-geographical events, so there's lots of people from different places who are able to do this? You as L&D practitioners or apprenticeship leads or people who understand the benefit of this can keep businesses going, not just by stopping training being cancelled, but also being confident to be able to have those conversations. So let's think about what other things that we can stop being cancelled or add benefit to within your clients or stakeholders. We're going to do what we call a chat hold and send on this one. So this is about thinking about the answer to the question on the screen right now. So I'm giving you my trainer hat on now, showing you some wiring behind the scenes. And another way you could use the chat in your online sessions. So I'd like you to find a response to the question on the screen, whatever your answer will be, write it into the chat. So the message at the bottom, make sure it's clicked to everyone, but hold it. Don't click send, don't click return. And what I'd like you to do after you've done that is go to the reactions button in your toolbar at the bottom. So it'll be where the little emoticons are, and just give me a hand up. So I'd like you to put your answer into the bottom of the chat box. Don't share it, but once you've put an answer into the bottom of the chat box, go and click on the reactions, go and give me a little hand up. I'll just give you a couple of seconds to do that. How could this benefit your client or your stakeholder? Just give us the answer in the chat. I'll just wait for the little hands to come up. You should have just a little reactions button on your toolbar. Has everybody got that? There we go. Thanks, Anthony, for the thumbs up. Brilliant. Thanks, Owen.
If you put your hand up, because the thumbs up disappears, which makes this activity a real pain, because they all disappear. But if you use the hand up, it stays there. So it means that we can see really quickly. So use the hand.
John's got it. Steve's got it. There we go.
Brilliant.
Yeah, for some reason it goes away, doesn't it?
I know.
Yeah, Owen's got it. Brilliant. We'll just give it a couple of seconds for everybody to find that. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Anthony. Just give it a couple more seconds. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to count to 3. And when I count on 3, what I'd like you to do is go back to your chat box and hit return, and all your messages will pop up at the same time. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, here we go. So we've got reassurance, time, efficiency, reassurance, 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 easy, adaptive. Yeah, what else? What other kind of things, what kind of events is your stakeholders going to benefit by having this kind of different way of thinking about things, this kind of digital first, digitization, digital transformation type approach that we could lend? What other events, what other activities could support? Easy access, Nicole says, yeah, absolutely. But what other things do we think might be cancelled at the moment that particularly could be in the in-person space that still need to happen as part of your business? What other benefits could digitization bring, or being comfortable as L&D or apprenticeship providers that can support? Conferences, yeah, absolutely. What else? What other events, what other benefits, what other things are going on, particularly end of the year? Because we're not going to scrap everything. We're not going to stop everything. Parties, Steve. Yeah, that's the important one, isn't it? Christmas parties. Yeah, I love that. Fundraising events. Yeah, here we go. There's lots of things here that can benefit your clients and your stakeholders by kind of saying, it's all right, we don't need to cancel everything, but we can still do things, and we can be really comfortable and confident in the online space. End of year targets and budgets. Yeah, I love that. Here we go. We're starting to think about things in a slightly different way. So we've come up with a few. Meetings, conferences. I think conferences have already come up. Town halls. You might have people, might come together at the end of the year to talk about how the business is done. If you're collaborating in any way, project meetings and things like that, coaching, onboarding, businesses still need to keep running throughout this space. And, people will knee-jerk. And if you're there as that core solid foundation of it's okay, we can still do it, and it can still be interactive and engaging and fun and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't have to be in person all the time. And I'm going to hand you back over to Hayley now to think about more around what does that mean for our people as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Erica. Yeah, so some really great insight coming through, and it's always good for us to see some of that kind of consistency in terms of people's challenges and what they're looking for out of this. And what I found really interesting there, actually, Erica, was the fact that it was a chat, hold, and send. So we didn't know what anyone had written. You can't copy each other's answers. You can't hold your answer back. Yet reassurance came up really strong in there, didn't it, as a need? So I think that speaks 1,000 words as well. And this is a lot of this we only learn through collaborating and coming together and talking about some of these things. So thank you so much for sharing your insight, because it really is adding value for us and for everyone else in the room. I think something that people are expecting now is choice. So people now in workplaces, they may have had 12 months working from home. Their lifestyles have changed. People have maybe moved house. They've moved to different locations. They've seized opportunities to work differently. They've gained maybe more work-life balance. Their circumstances might have changed in terms of people they might be caring for at home, or children, or animals. They may have got pets. So people now have created a life where they're almost expecting choice. They want choice, flexibility, empowerment. And it's causing this great resignation where people are starting to leave workplaces to go to other workplaces that are starting to offer some of this and be okay with some of this. So I suppose the message about this now is, why is training and learning any different? And it isn't really. In terms of work, people can access training and learning from anywhere. And that doesn't just mean live virtual classrooms, face-to-face training online. It could be really chunked down micro learns. It can be podcasts, it can be apps, it can be research. There's so many things that we can do with digital learning. And a lot of the time, one thing that we've found is this comes back down to mindset, to skills gap. And these are the two main things that we find need to be overcome, is that adjustment to how we think about things and not being afraid to push the boundaries on stuff, but also making sure that we're filling the skills gap that then produces. And there is a skills gap around some of this, and one that can absolutely be filled, which is good because it means that there's something that we can do about it. So there's a whole amount of different possible events that we could put forward. You've got people talking now about hybrid working, about bringing people together from around the world in quick events that maybe people wouldn't have been able to attend before. You've got the fact that people can now access training, meetings, conferences that again may not have been able to in person. And there's a real opportunity now to start leading organizations in this digital space. So it really gives L&D that seat at the table that Erica was talking about earlier. Also, it gives us an opportunity to be creative and to actually, I love it when someone says to me, an organization says to me, Hayley, these are the slides we're using. Make sure our logo's on there, but make them look different, feel different. And you can start to see some of that with the slides that we've brought to you today. There's so many different engagement design methodologies we can bring in, which actually makes it much more exciting for us as learning practitioners as well. We can make it really learner-centric. We can put our learners in the heart of everything we're doing. We can interact with people. We can record sessions even, which is just a simple thing to be able to reinforce learning in the workplace. So I've got a few questions now for you, and I'm going to ask again, now that we've done the chat, hold and send once, we can have a go at it in a slightly different context. What I'd like you to do is, as I'm asking you this question, pop your answer into the chat and very quickly just pop your hand up. If it's still up from last time, click the hand again to bring it down. And we've got 3 questions for you now to think about. So the first one is, what percentage, she says, I've lost my question, what percentage of individuals, oh, for goodness sake, sorry about this, guys. What percentage of learners and students are choosing live instructor-led training over in-person events? So what percentage of learners and students are choosing live interactive online events over in-person events? And what I'd like you to do is pop your answer in chat. It's a percentage. Once you've done it, stick your hand up, and then when we've got a few ready, we'll send them in. Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Owen. Thanks, John. Jake, brilliant stuff. We'll wait for a couple more to come in, and we'll count down from 3. So 3, 2, 1, send your answers in. Let's see what you've come up with. So 20% there, 85, John's gone high, 0% Steve, 25, 5 to 10, actually choosing it, Anthony, 60 from Cheryl. So what a range of responses we've got in there. So the answer on that one then is 65% of students and learners are choosing live instructor-led training. So there's an interesting stat for you there. Let's bring up the next one then. What percentage of organisations are offering more virtual training? So what percentage of organisations out there are now offering more virtual training? So once again, chat, hold and send. Pop your answer in the chat. Give us a hands up once you've typed it in, and then we'll all send together in a second. What percentage of organisations are offering more virtual training? Brilliant. Lots of hands going up there. So again, we'll go for a 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Send it in. So this has gone much higher now, 70, 80, 60, 75, absolutely. So the actual percentage on that one is 90%. So you've all gone higher, but that's huge, isn't it? It's a lot higher. And the final one, and this is something that plays really true to what Erica and I do, by what percentage can virtual training increase engagement and application of learning in comparison to face-to-face? So by what percentage can virtual training actually increase engagement and application? And once again, pop your answer in. Give us a hands up once you've typed it in. Thanks, Cheryl. I can see your hand's gone straight up there. Thanks, Anthony. Awesome. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Send your answers in. 100% Owen, love that. You're talking my language. 70%, 40, 50, 10. So again, we've got a real range here coming out from the group. So the answer there is by 65%. And the reason for that is because you can really increase learner recall through using a number of different design methodologies in your online training to increase learner recall by 65%.
And it's funny, I think sometimes as trainers and facilitators, we kid ourselves a little bit because we might have a bunch of people sat in a room nodding away or having a conversation, and you might be thinking, oh yeah, I'm getting lots of energy from the group and they're coming up with some good stuff and whatever, but you can't see into what is going on in people's heads. So if we were to pause it, I guarantee you, and you'll know this and you'll feel it once I say it, you've probably got a couple of introverts sat at the back of the room that haven't actually spoken for a while because they're letting the extroverts take up all the airspace, you know, so you've got some chatty people giving you the answers that you're really buzzing off. You might have some people who are chatting away, but actually in their head thinking about what time they need to pick the kids up or what they're going to have for dinner, or like all these normal conversational things we have in our head, because you can really concentrate up for about 6 minutes at a time before we're kind of straying away to something else. So actually just having people in the room in front of you does not mean they're engaged, and I think sometimes we kid ourselves around that. So it's worth thinking about challenging ourselves around that stuff as well. Hayley, there's definitely some stuff around how you can digitally engage around digital body language, and you know, actually specialize and hook into everybody in the session rather than just assuming, you know, there's a few people speaking for everybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes as trainers and facilitators, we feel comfortable to have lots of chat going on in the room, and that gives us a bit of a perception of engagement in a classroom. But actually, when you peel back some of the layers, just as you've said, you can really be losing people, but you feel good because you've got a few people talking. And one of the things that I've noticed is if people have brought that into the online space, they're still craving that speech, the interaction, the conversation, but even more so that can very easily and quickly overrun into a few people, maybe the few that have got the cameras on, so the kind of rest become black boxes. So there's so many techniques to think about in terms of bringing it, you know, chat hold and send's a good example of that. And in a live training environment, we'd be much more kind of targeted in terms of making sure we've got everyone's responses and things like that as well. Definitely, yeah, really good stuff. So it's nice. Thank you for your guesses in there as well, but these are quite big percentages really for us to be thinking about and adapting to as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that in mind, then we're just going to do a very quick whiteboard on the screen. I want you to think about, and this could be down to your experience actually, it'd be good to see this from your experience and not just the things that you've hooked onto that Erica and I have said throughout this session, but what are you actually seeing and feeling and hearing from your experience? Is what's the difference between online, in-person design and delivery? What's the difference between these two things? What if you could capture the main difference, what would it be? So on the next slide, we've got just a whiteboard for you to type onto. Now, as I said before, at the very top, you can see it says you're viewing Hayley Bird's screen, and just Erica Farmer's screen, and just next to that, it says annotate. So click on annotate, and you'll see in there's a number of different annotation options. So we're going to use the text tool today. So if you just click on text, T for text, you can click anywhere on the screen. You can type into the text box that appears and then just click away. Owen's already on it. Brilliant stuff. So if you don't want to use the annotate, you haven't got it, or you're scrabbling around figuring out, or you're on your phone or something similar, just use the chat, and Erica and I can add those on for you. So that's no problem either.
Great.
Brilliant. Time, Owen, I'm so glad you've said that, because we have to consider the time we're in a session, don't we? I've spoken to a lot of training providers in the last couple of years who are taking all day face-to-face events and bringing that into an all-day online event, which is heavy, really heavy.
And not just for you as a facilitator, but for the learners, you know, we kind of facilitate 2 hours maximum.
Yeah.
If we're doing an all-day course, it's 2 times 2 hours maximum, 4 hours. That's pretty much what we'll do, because you lose people after that.
Yeah.
And they're just sat staring at screens and getting tired and demotivated and all that kind of stuff. So long gone is those days of 7 hours of learning. We really need to be kind of ripping up the rule book and chunking things down, and you know, this micro learning, bite-sized learning. What's the key output that you're looking for that's going to make the biggest impact to either that individual or the business? That's where you need to be focusing.
Definitely. Use of rooms in teams, ensuring activities are relevant. Yes, it's one thing sticking a load of interaction in there, but what value is this particular piece of interaction having? Vary it, mix it up, check on engagement. Yes, and the main difference is not so much travel. And to be honest, I don't know about you, but I'm quite relieved about that. My life was very stressful when I was leaving a house with 2 young children in the mornings to leave for 3 days, at a time, traveling around the country. And like I said, this goes back to that choice that people have had. People have made changes, and some people will still choose that environment, and that's absolutely fine. So that's where hybrid starts to come in. It's about giving people the option of choice. Focus and attention. So I'm feel very strongly about time. Breaks, absolutely. You need to respect people's time and energy when we're online. Definitely more interaction allows more people to attend. Yeah, by all means. We can do some really big webinars with hundreds of people that are still interactive and still promoting engagement. Less time to think in between meetings, straight on to the next thing. Yeah, so you lose some of that reflection time that you would usually get the drive home. So we need to think, how can we factor that in? Can we advise people to block out that time? Brilliant. Okay, some good stuff here. So some really, really good examples that you've brought in, and we've got a few for you to share as well. Erica's still adding a few on there as well.
Yeah, I've got just some good stuff from Anthony coming through in the chat that I'm just sticking on the whiteboard.
Awesome, brilliant. I love that. Doesn't always need to be live. How true is that? And this is where we start to go into micro learning. So what's the best way to deliver this piece of learning? Will people want a 2-minute YouTube video or a podcast to learn this? People are loving podcasts, so they're doing more walking and exercise and swimming. Definitely need to intersperse learning with a device to engage. Awesome. Okay. So we need to be thinking about our interaction. We need to be responsive. Now, when you're online, it's very easy to fall into a process. It's very easy to just think about your content, getting through your content, delivering your message. But we need to be able to respond to the learners, to interact off the bat, to be able to be responsive and actually read the room. And that's a real skill. And there's differences in reading a room online than there is face-to-face. There's a real skill there and something to think about. The other thing that we've noticed is that people will bring their face-to-face slides because they absolutely cover off all the key points, and they've run them and they get them, and they're familiar, and they work in face-to-face space, and then they bring them into Zoom. And what that doesn't always do is drive the same level of engagement. So really designing to engage, thinking about our structure. How are we getting people to think about things before we give them all the answers, to move it from a presentation to an actual resource as well. So there's a lot to be done in there. And also, don't be afraid to push yourself and to actually challenge ourselves. Erica and I have been doing this for quite a long time, and we would never ever tell anyone that we know it all because there is so much, and we're looking all the time, how can we do more of this or learn more about that, or there's new platforms, let's try that. So there's so much you can do with it. Just push yourselves to learn something different.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've really just scraped the surface just to show you a few bits, just to demonstrate, going back to that kind of how to stop your training being cancelled piece, demonstrating these kind of digital tools, way to engage, and not just in L&D, but meetings and coaching and project meetings, and enabling the business to continue with the functions that they require. All of this stuff is applicable in so many different ways. And, you could be someone's hero if you can find them an opportunity to continue doing what they need to do and deliver in their role, but just in the digital space as well. So let's start to kind of think about wrapping some of this up. So let's do, again, just a chat, hold and send. Let's cast your mind back to the last, how long have we been live? 45 minutes. And I want you to write down again in the chat, don't send it right now, what are all the tools that we've used just in 45 minutes today that can be part of your how to stop your training being cancelled conversation, or your client or your employer or your learner, that actually we know that training can continue in this space and be just as good, if not better, than in person. I'm going to give you a minute or so, just cast your mind back, think about the stuff that we've been doing today. What are the tools that we've used just within 45 minutes? And we haven't even gone anywhere near breakout rooms. Can you believe it? Because a lot of people just associate Zoom and Teams with breakouts, don't they? Okay, once you're kind of done, oh, thanks very much, Anthony. That's great. Once you're done, just put your hand up so I can see that you're kind of exhausted with your little list. And so many things that you want to pop down in that is fine. Don't worry, Anthony. I'm going to challenge you for one more though, as part of the chat, hold and send.
There's always one. There's always one.
It's normally me, to be fair. Once you've got your list, just give me a hands up. Okay, I'm just going to give it another couple of seconds for you if you're just finishing off your list. And on 3, 1, 2, 3. Polls, here we go. Whiteboards, polls, adding value to interventions. Love that. Interaction, annotate, chat, engagement, word cloud, hands up, chat waves. I love that. I think you mean chat, hold and send. I love the name chat waves for it though. That's cool. Hands up, key facts. Yes, Cheryl, absolutely. You know, Hayley was asking you what percentage and things like that. All of this stuff is how you convert your in-person to the online space. And it's not rocket science. It is confidence and it is mindset. That's what the difference is. And when you're talking to your clients or your stakeholders, you can be using these kind of things. The platform we've used today, we weren't sure whether we were going to go with Teams or Zoom or WebEx. We decided to go with Zoom. But you know, all of the platforms have something slightly different. Poll everywhere. We did the word cloud at the beginning. Slide design, like Hayley was just talking about, video slides and things like that. This is all PowerPoint that we've been using. So video slides, annotation, I think came up in the chat hold and send chat hold and send, reactions, which is your hands up, your emoticons, etc. Graphics, so we had moving graphics as part of the slides and what we did. We're going to give you a link to a download in a minute for you to take away and learn some more stuff around digital learning, which will be absolutely free and kind of gives you some more resource to go for after the session today. As Cheryl said, facts and percentages. So again, just in 45 minutes, we've already done all of this stuff. And it's not gimmicky. Hopefully you don't feel it's gimmicky, but it's just there to kind of demonstrate the engagement, interaction, and the way you can demonstrate this to employers and learners and stakeholders. And you know, the one thing that I found most important, particularly over the last 2 years, is your network as well. That's probably the biggest resource that you can tap into right now, whether that's your LinkedIn, whether that's your colleagues, whether that's you know, people you particularly get on with. You know, if you're looking for opportunities to be able to keep your training plans running, do things in a different way, be creative, think about things differently, use your network, reach out to people like Hayley and I. We will always be very happy to understand what your challenges are and talk some of that through. Talk about network and resources. We're going to put a link into the chat in just a moment. If you click on that link, it'll take you to our digital ebook, absolutely free of charge. Gives you some really practical tips on virtual learning, digital learning, the types of conversations, the types of language that we could use. Feel free just to click on that link, which is in the chat. What will probably pop up is the website where it's hosted right now, but don't worry about that. You can keep that and you can access at the end. And also the link to this is in the Eventbrite advert page as well, where you went to get your ticket, so you can go back there as well. But that's absolutely free of charge from us, a little present for saying thank you for attending today. If you're thinking that's all very well, but you know, we recognize we do have a skills gap around digital learning, virtual, live, instructor-led learning. I'd like our teams to be able to do something different. I've seen some of the stuff today that I'm really interested in. I'd like to know more about. Of course, we train other trainers, consultants and tutors, training companies, corporate L&D, etc., in exactly this stuff. And we've trained probably over, I keep saying over 500, it's probably way more than that now, over thousands of people over the last 2 years in interactive, engaging online learning, and the value add that it's brought to businesses. We've got kind of some very significant apprenticeship providers who've kind of come to us to say, you know, we recognize the progress that we've had in some of our cohorts is now down to the type of learning that we're delivering, and we couldn't have done that without you. So that's really fantastic to hear when you hear that from clients and people that we've worked with. One of our programs is called Dial Up Digital. This is an accredited program, so it's accredited by the CPD Standards Office, which means you come away with a recognised certificate and CPD hours, also with a bespoke tailored report. It's delivered in partnership with our sister company, 123 People Development, and you've got a light touch version, which is called Core, which is 9 hours of accredited learning, and you've got a deeper dive what we call mastery, right into the depth of online learning and some of the real challenges, and we put you in some interesting positions to really get to grips so you become that master in the online space. If you are interested in that, there's more information on the website, and here are the open course dates that you might be interested in for this year. They'll shortly be on the website as well. I'm going to leave them up for a minute because we're just coming to the end of the session. As I leave them on the screen, I'm interested to get from you guys any further challenges, any thoughts, any reflections. Put it into the chat for us. And actually, kind of what's the one thing that you've taken away, even if it's just sparked a thought of something, either through the conversation, what somebody else has shared in the chat, some of the stuff that we've talked about today. What's that one thing that's kind of pinged in your head, that one reflection that you've kind of had during the session today? Just pop that in the chat for me, because it'll be really interesting to see what you have taken away from today's session. We'll just leave the dates up there if they're of interest as well. What's the one thing, one spark? Jazzy PowerPoints from Owen. Yeah, we absolutely cover that. Audience engagement, Cheryl. Amen. Amen. Absolutely. Good to share strategies, Nicole says. Yeah, 100%. Some of the stuff that people have put in the chat today has been brilliant. Anthony has reminded some of the tools and devices that can be used. Yeah, absolutely. And there's just so much out there. If you use Teams has just got PowerPoint Live, which is, if you haven't gone into PowerPoint Live, that's a whole different ball game. That's brilliant. You know, we would be happy to do some work with you on PowerPoint Live and getting the most out of that if you use Teams rather than Zoom, for example. Reflection virtual learning can be more effective than face-to-face. Who knew? Absolutely, Steve. I love that. And I always say to people, you know, that kind of change my mind meme that you might see go around. But, you know, one of my taglines is, you know, virtual can be as good as, if not better than in person. Change my mind. You know, so I'm absolutely in that space. Brilliant. Let's just see if there's any other bits. Hayley, any reflections from you?
I was just listening to what you're saying. I remember when I used to, when I first did this, so first kind of got a taste of what online learning could be about 6 years ago. And then I think a couple months later, I got invited to face-to-face training for 2 days. And I really resented the whole 2 days, thinking I could have done this from home. You know, they could have done it this way, they could have done it that way. And I think that mindset I reflect a lot on now, because I think that's where a lot of our people will be. You know, they'd have learned to adapt and do so much more online that a lot of people would be thinking, I didn't need to travel here, I didn't need to do this, I didn't need to drive in the dark or stay in a hotel and all that stuff. So I think it's just, it's thinking about this from an actual, as well as an organizational point of view, but a people point of view as well, and the sacrifices that people are no longer willing to make, I think, willingly. Yeah,
agreed. Brilliant. Thank you so much for attending today. There's our contact details. There's lots of free thought pieces like the ebook on the website, blogs, podcasts, videos, examples of how to facilitate, etc. Go and have a look. It's all free. Do go and have a look for us. You know, we're very collaborative, we're very innovative, we love working with people, we love meeting new people. So thank you so much, everybody. The recording of the session will come out to you guys through the Eventbrite registration. And again, thanks so much for being with us, guys, and do get in touch if we can help you in any other way.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It was really good to have you here, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Welcome everybody to our webinar. It's fantastic to have so many fabulous faces. We're working with hundreds of trainers and consultants and tutors across the world, and some large clients to help digitise their learning and development strategies.
With interaction, use lots of options.
In the online space, engagement is key.
To be able to bring digital tools into the face-to-face space.
I feel like it's really setting my business up.
And it gave us not only the confidence, but also the skills.